Welcome to Sundays at Cafe Tabac, the podcast. This podcast series is an extension of our film's mission to affirm and extol the courage, strength, and joy in our LGBTQ plus community through the preservation and sharing of our personal stories and the collective histories we live through and change. I'm your host, Wanda Acosta. In this episode, I welcome shapeshifting DJ, producer, and activist Lauren Flax. Lauren began her career in the underground Detroit music scene, where she evolved her style into techno, house, and electro music. More recently, she is producing and recording her own music, and we are so pleased to showcase some of her music throughout this episode. You can follow Lauren on Spotify and Instagram at Lauren Flax. I'm happy to be sitting in the studio today with the wonderful, amazing DJ producer, Lauren Flax. Hi, Lauren.
Hi,
welcome.
Wanda. It's so good to be here. It's good to see you. It's been too long.
It's been way too long. It's really great to see you. I haven't seen you since before
It must have been
the
Pride.
pandemic.
Yeah, Pride 2018 or something.
Mm-hmm. And how much fun did we have that?
That's
You
good.
rocked the house.
It's fun. I got to get real old school.
Yeah.
It's fun.
How have you been, and how did you weather the last couple of years?
Oh my God. How long do we have? I'm a completely different person.
Yeah, wow.
In the best way possible, I think. But aside from the trauma of the pandemic and the civil unrest in America, like everybody was delivered a very specific trauma to deal with on top of that, you know?
Yeah.
Like everybody was. So I think 2020 was obviously really intense. I didn't write one song. I just was on the street, you know, after George Floyd was killed. It was just like, okay, I know where I have to channel the rage through. It's not music right now. It's through action. So that was basically my whole 2020. And then I had to move and big life changes. And then 2021, I started to get my bearings again. It also just felt like a time where I'm big on my healing journey of the last decade. And it feels like the pandemic was a really good opportunity to like take the time alone, because a lot of us were forced. I've never spent more time alone in my whole life, even like New Year's Eve alone in my apartment. And I've never, ever been alone on New Year's Eve.
Right.
It was very intense, painful at times, but like so necessary to like just, I'm never going to have the opportunity again in my life to go as deep as I did during the pandemic. So I think I took advantage of the time as much as I could. And that's why I say like I am a completely different person now.
I think that's happened to so many of us, and with different outcomes, obviously.
Yeah.
But to be able to have that time of introspection, that's unfortunately was forced on us, but in many ways a blessing too, to be able to just have to be still with yourself.
Yeah, the great pause.
Mm-hmm. You spent most of your time in your space in Brooklyn.
Yep. In the, summer and spring and any warm weather, decent enough, I was outside. I mean, I was walking more than anything, and started running because I caught COVID in the very beginning. And then afterwards, I wanted to get my lungs back. So I ended up starting to run, which was really good because I'm not a natural runner. I'm still not a natural runner, but it was really good for me to be outside.
And that's also like really introspective, like when you're running and sort of thinking and just like being out in nature. So that's great. Can you talk a little bit about how it felt to be out on the streets during all the activism that was going on? What did that feel like for you?
The streets were so alive. It was very intense. And just, I've never really spent a time in my life where every time I left the house, I had to write phone numbers on my, and marker on my leg, in case, just fully intending or just planning on getting arrested. And luckily that did not happen. For my age, and having that be the first time I've had to experience like real police insanity, like violence against a whole community, is also coming from a place of privilege, that I haven't experienced that before. So I was just very aware. It just brought it on home of what other people deal with quite regularly.
And were you going to a lot of these protests on your own or with community, or did you have a sort of a queer group that you would engage with? Or
I would try to go with people usually, but sometimes I would go by myself. But when it was really height of it, really scary times, I wouldn't go by myself. I would always go with a partner. Yeah.
And have you been involved in any other kind of activism before this?
I really started becoming more active and vocal in 2016 with Trump coming up. I mean, that really motivated me. When he got elected, the first few months, just totally drunk and, dealing with the concept of this actually happening. And, 3 months after that, I was like, okay, time to get my shit together. And, and that ended up sparking my sobriety because it really wasn't supposed to be forever. It was just going to be a month so that I could get my life together and get out there and protest and start fighting everything that's coming our way because of Trump, But it ended up being a much longer journey, and I'm now 5 years sober.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
That's amazing.
you. Yeah,
I love that. I think we all started drinking during Trump. I mean, I remember those horrible debates between him and Hillary Clinton that were just unbearable. It just made everybody so angry, and we couldn't believe that he was actually running for president. And, and we know what happened.
Yeah, and we're dealing with it today
Mm-hmm.
still. And all the shit has risen to the surface. So, all the hidden racism is now just, everybody's just happy to do it right in front of everybody. So now we can see it. Right. At least we can see it now,
Mm-hmm. And then how do we tackle it? But
without losing our minds and holding on to our own mental health. It's a really tricky balancing act.
And on top of that, everything else that's going on with transphobia and abortion rights and LGBTQ rights. And, it's one thing after another.
Having a conversation today actually with my cousin, who's cis white straight man, and him posting something about how people are just looking for things to get quote unquote triggered over. And I brought up and I was like, are you talking about abortion and homophobia and transphobia and things like that right now? And he was like, yeah, pretty much. So pretty much all the things that you're not affected by whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And you have this pretty heavy opinion on. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, and he's a good guy. He'll listen to me. And we have good conversations. They're intense. He just literally is in a small world compared to what's really out there. Right. So these are the conversations I try to have without losing my temper. Because it's like having to spit out facts about the trans community. And Chappelle, his words is not freedom of speech, because freedom of speech does not protect anti-Semitism. It doesn't protect real deal racism on stage. Do you see a person on stage that's like straight up saying like, I'm a member of the KKK, and then causing a joke and then like, no. Right. That person is dragged. They're removed. They're not. And we need to hold these same standards for the trans community. So having to spit out all these facts,
And did he hear you?
I'm waiting for a response. I did it literally when I woke up. I left it for a couple of days, and then I just wrote some stuff, and I need to take my time. Right. Because I don't want to lose. I get angry, man. I'm a Libra. Like, justice is my card. Like, I want to shake the baby. Like, why do you not understand this importance? The importance
but,
of
these
this?
Conversations are super important because it's so easy for people to sort of spit out things without actually thinking out the process or what they're even saying. And that you made him know and aware that, none of this affects you. It's really easy for you to make these comments. It's really easy for you to be, phobic about all of these things that don't have any effect on your life. But what does that mean for the people that have to live that day to day, right? So I'm curious what his response will be.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
So let's backtrack a little bit to talk about why we're here, right? This is our podcast of liberation and empowerment and queer coming out stories. And I don't know that we ever talked about your story of how you came to be in your body and in your space. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, it's a work in progress to this day, being embodied. I was raised in a very Catholic family. Well, my mom was very Catholic. My dad really didn't give a shit about religion, but I went to Catholic school on the east side of Detroit and, church twice a week, made it all the way up to my first confirmation, started, and then we moved out to the suburbs, and it was the 9th grade that I kind of had my first girl crush. And I was like, that's the only one. That's the only one. It's never going to happen again. And of course, by my senior year, I had really worked myself into some real, just painfully closeted. And I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but my senior year of high school, and this is crazy, my anxiety was so bad that I had thought I'd gotten into a car accident and that I was in a coma and that everything that was going around me was a dream and that one day I was going to wake up and be okay.
Wow.
And I was, very active in sports. I never went to school my senior year. I don't know how I graduated. My only escape was I would go to school, have a panic attack, go home, sleep. That was my only escape.
So wait, because of what was going on in your sexual identity, convinced yourself that you had a car accident, were in a coma, and what was happening and what you were feeling was going to go away when you recovered. Wow.
You know what? Now that I'm saying this now, I've experienced this another time. I think I was pretty much dissociated most of my senior year of high school. Now that makes sense to me. So nothing felt quite right. And then I graduated high school. I was 17 when I graduated high school, and I was just in my parents' house, and we were living together still. And they were somewhere. And then I just went downstairs. I stole one of my dad's beers and slammed it. And then I was like, I'm going to tell them today. And then they came home and they sat on the couch, and I said, I got to tell you guys something. And I sat on the ottoman in front of them and just bawled for about 20 minutes. My mom knew what was coming. She had an idea. And I just said it. And that pretty much ended our relationship.
What did you say to them?
I just said I'm gay. And I just remember my mom asking why I chose this lifestyle. I'm like, I didn't choose this. Why do you think I didn't choose? Why would I choose this? And this was like in a time where I was drawing a lot of angels everywhere, because I was trying to have angels watch over me, and I was praying to God, you have Jesus Christ like shoved down your fucking throat your whole life. You believe it's like fundamentally a part of your existence, and it took a lot of work to decode that. So I did a lot of praying, like, please take this away. I don't want to be this, I'm going to go to hell. What's the point of being alive if I'm going to hell anyway, And yeah, I had suicidal ideations, and just like so many others, And I remember after that happening, I had to go to work, and I was a pizza delivery bitch. And so I went to work. I got pulled over for speeding, and I was a mess. I started screaming at the police officer. I was like, I don't give a fuck about you. You could do whatever the fuck you want. Fuck you. Here's my shit. I don't give a fuck. I'm driving this shit into a wall when you're done. Have fun. Bye. Like, I made the decision. He was like, what's going on? Talk to me. I was like, I was kicked out of my fucking house. And he was like, I was kicked out too. Like, why were you kicked out? I'm like, because I'm fucking gay. Like, screaming this to him.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And he
what a release though.
Yeah. He took my license and everything, went back to the car, and I'm just plotting which wall I'm going to drive into, and I'm just freaking out, punching shit. 10 minutes later, he comes back, he hands me my license, he says, have a nice day. And I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
It was in that exact moment. I obviously didn't go through with what my plan was after that, because what he did. And it was just like, I think about that moment. I was like, and I'm a big ACAB person, the thoughts of that. And then
he saved your life.
He did. And I also think to myself, but if I was a person of color yelling at him, it might not have turned out the same way.
Yeah.
So I noticed my privilege in that moment too. But getting back to that moment, I mean, yeah, like that was a moment I hadn't thought about until maybe 20 years later, And so...
Wow, that's such a poignant moment and story. He said that he had been kicked out. So somehow he was compassionate to your story and understood that maybe you were just really going through something at this.
No, he could tell. I was losing my fucking mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
It was a lot.
You were saying earlier that you kind of was disassociated in high school in your senior year. Like, were your parents aware of what was happening? I mean, did they feel like you were kind of like not really present, and was there something happening there?
You would think it was noticeable, but I think by the time I was the youngest, and by the time I was coming up, I wasn't really a priority for them.
You have older
Two
siblings?
older sisters, yeah. So things that were obvious to me, and even I've talked about it to my sister, I'm like, if Madeline were to do this, like, you would notice it, right? And she was like, in a fucking heartbeat. So these are the things I kind of have to accept about my upbringing. And my parents aren't terrible people. They're just, they only know what they know. I know being born in this family, my mom has apologized to me about that moment and how I was treated, and doesn't believe I chose this lifestyle. My mom is actually a true Christian woman. She will listen and grow.
you seem to say that your mom has apologized and she is cool with
She's
you.
better with it.
How's your dad?
You know,
And are your parents together still?
they're still together.
Mhm.
Yeah. He tolerates it. You know, we don't really talk about it that much.
Mhm.
And I used to not want to like talk about it and shake the boat.
Mhm.
And then I started taking ayahuasca, and then I was like, I'm going to tell you everything I feel and everything that's wrong and why you need to grow up and stuff. And so, but now I think like, you know, we're back to kind of, it's difficult, but, you know, because they're also Republicans and they voted for Trump. So
right.
it's a very difficult relationship because how do you not
The
want to
politics.
protect your daughter?
Mhm.
You know, and you want to protect an unborn baby, but not your daughter. So it's hard.
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Right.
So, but we do love each other. You know, that we only have one set of parents, you know.
You know, and it's not anything that we need to keep talking about. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, every time you go home, you got to talk about like, you know, your gay lifestyle.
That's exactly it.
But
Yeah.
it is who you are, right? So like there has to be, you know, it's a funny thing, like the things that we sometimes hide or not discuss. So in essence, hiding because they wouldn't understand. Like, oh, where'd you go last night? Oh, you know, I went to this club. Oh, what club? Well, you know, this X, Y, and Z.
It's
is
like kink party.
Yeah.
Go by this magazine, Samantha.
Right. So yeah, it's interesting. And, you know, and then the politics also can be difficult for families, particularly now.
Part of the privilege is talking to our relatives about their views until it becomes a place where it's harmful for you. And then you shouldn't talk to them anymore. But I don't feel that I'm in that place. I can actually, you know, we love each other. We try to understand each other. We're from different planets, different galaxies, different worlds.
Right.
That's what you got to do, I guess.
And how are your two sisters?
They're good.
What's your relationship with them?
My middle sister is one of my best friends. She's, you know, my rock in my family. We're very similar. She's like the straight version of me. She's really wonderful.
Do they live
very active
nearby?
They're all in Michigan still. And my oldest sister, we're close too. We almost lost her to COVID last year, and she's doing better now.
Oh gosh.
But her and her daughter live with my parents actually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Well, I'm glad she's okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
It has been crazy. I wonder if they were just like not certain how to approach it. Because if, you know, parents know, like my mom, after I came out and we had like the cry fest and the hour when go talk to the priest. And then I was raised Catholic as well.
God, I'm sorry.
You need help. You need this, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Shake this out of you. But then she said, you know, I kind of always knew. So they know, but they
My
can't.
mom knew.
They don't know how to approach or talk about it, or they think it's just going to go away. So I wonder if that was the case. They just wanted to ignore, so they didn't want to see anything or talk about anything. And then when it came up, it's like, did they kick you out, or you felt that you couldn't be there any longer?
The relationship was over, and I'm trying to remember. Like what I've learned actually also in the last couple of years is my memory of all of it is it's like not linear. It was over. I moved out shortly after that. Honestly, things got better once I moved out. Because I moved back down to Detroit, got my first apartment for like, it was a 2-bedroom for like, my rent was $179.
Amazing. And how old are you now?
I was probably 17 or 18.
Oh, quite young.
And I had the time of my life. Started working at Detroit Threads, which is a record store, and like I was DJing at Motor, which is this club, and everything was all in my neighborhood. It was like I found my community, and you know, I partied like crazy, you know, tons of ecstasy, you know, I have no regrets. No regrets. The time of my life.
How did you fall into music? Like, how did that come about?
Music has always been the most important thing in my life. When we left Detroit, moved to the suburbs, my best friend's dad was a drum teacher. So I grew up like starting 4th grade playing the drums. So I played the drums all the way through middle school and had asked my parents to give me a drum kit. And they made me, you know, choose between sports and joining band. And I was like, I was actually pretty good at sports. So they knew I wasn't going to give up sports, you know, I played basketball my whole life. So I kind of gave it up around then, but picked up guitar and bass in high school. And then I graduated and I went to the Recording Institute of Detroit for a little bit. Didn't learn much about music production. Moved to Chicago when I turned 21, and that's when I kind of learned
and that's
more.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I started DJing when I was still in high school.
Right.
So.
So playing the drums, you were definitely into music, and music was sort of probably salvation for you as well.
It was everything.
Great escapism, and started DJing at Motor, and then moved along from there. Did you start meeting other DJs, musicians?
Yeah, everybody was a
community?
DJ before me because I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to play my guitar. I was like, I don't want to play other people's music. And then I tried it one day and I was like, oh, I get it now. This is really fun to mix records together and create new elements. It's cool.
And then you started a band, but that was later on when you moved to New York, right?
Yeah, that was like 2007.
So did you kind of hone your craft in Detroit and Chicago first before you arrived in New York?
100%. Like I'm 100% an image of what happened in Detroit and Chicago.
And what was that like as a female? Was it mostly sort of a male-dominated, as it tends to be, scene? If so, what was that like for you as this young female queer in that?
I didn't let it bother me or even affect me too much. I just got sick of asking to play like all female lineups, and then I would like stop playing them because it's like, why are we doing this? Like, just book us like normally. But yeah, I don't know. I just never let it sink in. I just
it was just doing your thing.
Yeah.
But when you would say, "Hey, can you just not book us? This is all girls tonight," or
yeah, like who cares? Like,
how so? Did they listen to that and then start kind of putting you into a more mixed roster?
I think like when I moved to New York, things kind of slowed down for me because I didn't take it as seriously. So I think, but Detroit and Chicago were really great and serious, and I would get booked for like really fun stuff. And then New York was confusing to me because I got here and I immediately got into a part of a scene that was like they would book a DJ that would only play like band stuff at like the height of the night at the club at like Filter 14. And I was like, what is going on? I was very confused. I'm like, where's the beat matching? What's going on? So it was like a very jarring transition for me into New York.
How would you, if you could sort of describe the two scenes, like where you just came from versus New York? I'm curious, you probably played all kinds of clubs in Detroit.
Well, there weren't many clubs to play. It was mostly like underground raves.
Spaces.
Yeah. And raves, there would be like Motor Lounge was like the one club. There was a few other clubs like in Pontiac. There's, Clutch Cargos and a few other things. But it was mainly, Motor was the main club. Yeah. And when I got to New York, it was just that I got into the wrong kind of like scene. There was, of course, house and techno and things going on in New York in that time. I just wasn't a part of it at that moment. Yeah.
But then you did become part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I focused. Yeah.
And what brought you to New York? What made you come here?
Honestly, I left Detroit when I turned 21 to move to Chicago to just live in a functioning city, to where a place I could literally hail a cab and didn't need a car and take mass transit. That was exciting to me. 2.5 years of that, I was like, okay, Chicago, I love you, but it's time to go. It's like, I need to go to New York. And I just hit the ground running, and now it's 20 years this year.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I'm just as excited to be here now.
That's a major accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean,
considering everything that's happened.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're in New York. Do you know people here? Do you have friends when you come to New York?
I did have people in New York because it was like the dawn of message boards. And it was like we had something called Makeout Club. Do you remember? Have you heard of this?
The Makeout Club.
It was like the first website that had a guys section, a girls section. You had your profile, your picture, your AIM name, the bands you liked. Like you could write whatever you want. So you could just like connect with people that way. And then like a message board is just, obviously we know what they are now. But it was really the dawn of all of that. And I really think it like informed Facebook and things, how it is today.
Friendster, remember Friendster?
Yeah, Friendster, yep. And so I had friends lined up already.
Oh, great.
But before even moving here, it was really good.
So then you got here, got a space with friends.
Yeah.
And started focusing.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a minute because I was just partying and having a great time. And yes, of course,
as
DJing.
You should.
But I think like it was around 2005, 2006 where I was like, okay, I need to focus on purchasing and buying music and getting and just growing my catalog again, because I went from buying vinyl all the time to like going to the digital era. And then my DJing I just didn't stay on top of music. So by 2005, 2006, I started really kind of getting back into that.
So now you're talking about New York, which is, big city, very diverse in many ways. You're now out to your family, you have your friends. Being out, how did that either inform you, change you, liberate you, empower you? And do you get involved in any kind of community activism or queer scenes or music?
Yeah, I feel like everything I do is definitely more on the, like, at the very least, a mixed crowd. It's not very straight or very gay. There are like cool underground things that most people are queer. But yeah, I mean, that seems to be the general vibe. I mean, I don't really do much that's totally, totally straight, to be honest.
On a very personal level, how, if at all, did you coming out change how you felt about yourself, about your music, about how you would perform?
I spent so much of my teenage years and 20s just wanting to have the most amount of fun as possible and like not focusing on who I am and being embodied, and even knowing that I had a lot of work to do to like be really actually okay. Like I was not okay in my 20s and into my 30s. It was when I like started losing friends in my late 20s that I started to like kind of like think about like, oh, there's something a little bit bigger I need to start thinking about. And I mean, it's really crazy. I'm, 43 now, and I've never been more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not unique, but my most authentic self is right now. Because, when I quit drinking, it was like all of the things that I used drinking for to kind of help me have fun and help me communicate and socialize and intimacy, even just all these things. Taking that away kind of helped me understand what trauma had done to me. And that's when the real work could really begin. I don't know. I've always felt really okay. After I came out, like I always felt totally fine being queer. Like after I figured out like the whole Jesus, Christiana, Catholic thing, like is just bullshit. I came to my senses, the human version of what Jesus Christ is, and it's all bullshit. After I figured that out, I've just been completely happy. I would absolutely choose this. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I would absolutely choose to be gay. Right?
Why not?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. I think when I was definitely younger and I would have those conversations with, folks that were completely homophobic, like, well, why? Well, you chose to be gay. Why do you choose to be gay? And I would feel the same way. Like, who would choose this? Who would choose this sort of like ambiguity and pain and
to be
like
treated this way,
stress and and like, no, nobody wants to go through that and through that, that headspace until you get to a place where you're totally comfortable in your skin and with who you are. And yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah. And you're like, wait, the problem was never me. The problem was always them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fuck them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you fallen in love? Do you have a significant other?
I'm single. And I'm very excited that it's spring, summer, and I think it's going to be fun. I mean, I'm definitely looking for love. I've spent plenty of time having fun, but I'm looking for, to meet somebody and settle down and all the things. So we'll see. I've definitely fallen in love through the years, and I've learned a lot, had a lot of heartache, but I also, again, feel my most authentic self and like able to really actually truly give myself to somebody now. So it's a really exciting time for me.
That's exciting. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
And you look great. You look really happy.
I am. It's a really hard thing to say in a time like this, but I do feel pretty grounded in my skin and happy about things.
Well, it definitely shows.
Thank you.
Has your mom ever met any of your partners?
I did bring one partner to a family thing once, like 2014 or something. And, my dad kept calling her my friend to my uncle. And I'm like, Dad, she's my girlfriend. Shut up.
Oh, my mom still does that.
Oh, God. It's like, come on.
How's your friend?
Yeah.
It's so weird. She just can't say it. Oh, God.
So bizarre.
I know. It's such a different time now.
Yeah.
Certainly from when I was, coming out, and even when you were, 17 years old, for the queer community, things are definitely a lot more accepted. Social media has helped a lot. The politics around being queer have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the younger generation, maybe, I can't say, but maybe they don't feel it's that important anymore to come out because they kind of are out, right? They haven't really needed to hide. And of course, we're talking about certain places in the world. This doesn't happen everywhere. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, we're very privileged to live in a big city where, this is okay, seemingly okay. But if you had to give advice to a younger person today, do you think it's still important to come out? What advice and what would you say to them about coming out?
I think it just depends on that person's situation. I mean, I want to live in a world where we don't even have to come out, where it's just normal. You like who you like. And we're headed in that direction, hopefully. But I think that people, you just need to do what makes you feel safe. That's the biggest thing. And surround yourself with the people that make you feel safe, that you can be your true self around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of safety, I know that you have gotten involved with like safe raves and activism around that and drug use. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. 2019, I came up with this concept of, we're surrounded by people constantly dying of overdoses, either people that are actively taking opiates or accidentally taking opiates. In 2019, I was just like, we have to do something about this because our government isn't doing anything. So it's time for us to just act locally and try to... And they also changed the law around naloxone, which is Narcan. You used to need a prescription for it, and now you don't. But the problem is it's $140 a pop, usually, averaging. So you can go get one, but it's like that's cost prohibitive. It's not going to get to the neighborhoods that need it the most, and people aren't just going to be like, okay, fine, I'll spend $140 for something I might not use. So that's when I thought of the idea of partnering with my friend Danielle, who's a nurse, and we partnered with our friend Dr. Julius, and he's the head of the Black Nurses Association, and he's an opioid overdose prevention center. And so basically what we can do with us as a team, we can go around and train people and give people naloxone for free for the rest of their life. We basically train you, you get this little blue card, and then if you ever have to use the naloxone, you can go and get more for free forever. So you don't have to go get trained again. You just have to do it once.
That's great.
And it's mainly because, they're finding fentanyl and everything.
That's horrible, I know.
Yeah, and there's reasons for that. I mean, it's very cheap to make. It's easy to make. It's easy to synthesize. And what it ends up doing is if you put a little bit of fentanyl in somebody's ketamine or cocaine, it makes you get higher. And it also makes you come down quicker. So it's like a win-win for a drug dealer, right? But the problem is only 3 salt grain sizes will kill you. So it's very, very, very easy to die from. And there's people that'll just drop dead right in front of you. So I'm just trying to get I think it's, the rave community. I think we should all be able to partake in drugs safely because 99 times out of 100, you're not dying from the drug you're intending to take. You're dying from something else in it.
Right.
So, if you can just get Narcan in your medicine cabinet at home, if you have a little afters and something happens, boom, you can help your friend. So it seems to be, there are more harm reduction groups popping up and doing this on their own. So it's really good. I feel like it's really good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm so happy that, you guys are doing and working on that. How can we promote? Is there a website or something?
So it's lastnightadjsavemylife.org. And you got to spell out DJ. And we're about to redo the website. So you'll be able to see. I'm basically trying to have the website be like a location. If somebody goes to Portland, you can click on Oregon and see where in Portland there might be some meetups. And I'd like to make a worldwide directory for harm reduction groups. And also I'll put I think I'm just going to start doing little pop-ups and show up to Lot Radio with 15 Narcans. If you want to get trained, I'll just train you. It doesn't take long. Just come hang out for a minute, listen to music, have a drink.
Right.
I'll train you.
Right.
And then you're done.
Yeah. Well, we might have to fly you out to London to do that as well.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to Mark Archer from Alternate, and I wanted to actually have different chapters all over the world because it's different laws in different cities and different states and, of course, different countries. So I have to tread lightly with how we do that. But I definitely think that more places are doing stuff like that.
Who did you come to be?
I heard that you had a very mind-expanding experience with ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
So this is 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
So this was a prior sort of like getting to know yourself before.
Prior sobriety, all of it, yeah.
Prior sobriety, prior this whole this other moment of you being able to expand in a emotional way. Can you talk a little bit about that, what that experience was like?
Yeah. It's interesting because before ayahuasca, I'd only really taken a tiny amount of mushrooms. I was pretty scared of tapping into parts of my brain. It's a scary thing. But I had wanted to, and this is also getting kind of heavy, but I basically wanted to take ayahuasca to learn how to forgive my abuser as a child. And I just thought that it was the right thing to do is try to forgive, right? I go to my first ceremony upstate, and I'm thinking to myself, this is fucking nuts. What am I doing? I'm scared. You're in a house. Basically, it was 2 nights in a row. Second night got canceled because there was a storm coming in. So a lot of people from the following night ended up coming Friday. So we were crammed in this house. I've got my barf bucket. And I'm right next to shoulder to shoulder with people. I'm thinking to myself, I look around, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? This is crazy. But I just knew I had to. I knew it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing for me. And I need to preface with, there are 1,000 paths to the same destination. I'm not advocating for everybody to take ayahuasca. No one should tell you to take ayahuasca. Only you can. If somebody tells you to take ayahuasca, you go the other way.
Right.
Shaman, somebody calls himself a shaman, go the other way. But if it calls to you, it's very powerful. So it called to me. And I drank the ayahuasca, and there's a shaman up front, and he's an elderly man, and I could barely understand what he was saying. And I remember drinking the ayahuasca and sitting down and meditating, and I wasn't really going anywhere. And there were everybody around me going places. And as scared as I was like, okay, I'm going to go and talk to him and see if I need to take more. And he told me, he goes, look, no, if you should not take more, you should go sit down and meditate. And if you're not meant to get the information now, what if they were to give you all this information, you weren't ready for it, and it's just gone after that? They're not going to give you this information again. And I was like, okay. And I sit down and I meditate. And all of a sudden I see my heart pop in front of me. And I grab it with my spirit, like my hand, but in spirit, and throw it back in my chest, right? And I'm just like, fuck you. Fuck you forever. This was never yours. This is mine. Fuck you. Angry. And then I'm just bawling. And then I hear someone in their journey laughing. And I start laughing because I realize, I laugh crying. Just because I realized I was a whole person for the first time since I was 4. And it was one of the most powerful things that's ever happened to me. Even if I never took ayahuasca again, I was changed. And after that ceremony, more things happened. Quite a few other things had ended up happening. But about 6 months after that first journey, I remember it was on my birthday and I was in Berlin, and I remember thinking oh my God, I have so many hearts tattooed on my body. I have one on my neck. I have one on my head here. I have one here. I have one here. I have one on my leg. And I was subconsciously, I've been looking for my heart forever.
Oh, wow.
And I got it back.
That's wild.
It was so powerful. It was beautiful.
It's amazing that that's the first thing you saw, too, and you just
grabbed it.
Were able to grab it. And
obviously, I didn't
take it back.
Forgive this person. I went there to forgive. I didn't forgive this person. First off, I didn't know who it was. I didn't know what I was dealing with. But I got out of the ceremony what I needed.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got your power back somehow, and you got your heart back.
Yep. And
Now, I don't know if this is something you even want to discuss, but you mentioned an abused situation, an abuser. You were a young girl, 4 years old. You didn't know who the person was?
Well, I only remember afterwards. And so and it was sexual abuse. And so, I was a different person afterwards. And at 4, you just don't. You just know these changes. These changes were so obvious to me. And like, this was another conversation I had with my sister about like, wouldn't you notice this? It wasn't until many years later until I figured out who it was. 2019, to be honest. And
oh, wow.
So 2019 was
later.
a lot of, it was, starting ayahuasca and doing the work, about 2 ceremonies a year. You get so much information and you have to change your life. You can't just go to a ceremony and expect your life to change. You have work to do afterwards. You make the changes. So 2 ceremonies were enough for me a year. And then by 2016, I was starting to meditate and I got grounded in my body from meditation. So I didn't have anxiety anymore. Like I literally beat my anxiety with meditation. And so that put me in my body. And then 2017, I decided to quit drinking. So then I get to learn my body and learn like the things I do like, don't like, the things that scare me, like the natural reactions I'm having and how to deal with them from the inside instead of turning to something to deal with it.
Right.
So all of it really
and then that path up until now, right? And then you have that time to spend on your own to really process everything that you have unleashed and opened up since 2013.
Yeah. And let me just say, like, when something happens to you when you're that little, you fundamentally, like, the wires aren't connected. You're fucked up. Like, you fundamentally develop differently. So from 2013 till literally the last few months, like, in the last few months, the reprogramming is done. Like, I am fully in my body as if I was never... as if nothing ever had happened to me. And that is also another reason I'm very excited to like date and explore and have fun in a really genuine way, as opposed to before when I might have needed to be like a little drunk or like, I needed a little bit of help. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy to talk about this because I'm still very much on this journey.
Right.
It's like still
and it's
happening.
All of our journeys, right? Sometimes it's a lifetime of journey and learning and growing and expanding and realizing and forgiving and yeah.
I mean, I hope, and I mean, this is super personal stuff to say on a podcast, but I just hope that it resonates with some people out there that like, my particular journey isn't going to work for everybody, but like if you just follow your own handbook, you'll get there. It might be very similar to mine. I don't know. But the last decade have completely changed my whole life. And then the pandemic has really, it has given me the space to really go deep, to like be who I am right now. Yeah.
Yay. Yay.
Yeah.
Aw, love you, girl.
Love you too. I'm happy to talk about this. I think it's good to share.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's important for people to understand that they're not alone in their in their pain, their journey, and their anxieties and their questions, and that there is a light at the end of, some of those dark tunnels. Yeah. And when you hear other people's stories and that they have come out of it in a positive way, like you are a perfect example of, it can be life-changing for someone. Yeah. And that is why we do this podcast. We want to be able to share other people's stories with folks that maybe are unable to, be their authentic selves. Yeah.
And I also want to say, like, I'm a big believer in Western medicine with Eastern medicine, so I don't want anyone to believe that you should be one or the other. I think merging both is really important, and there are a lot of people out there that need antidepressants and things like this, and they shouldn't be embarrassed about needing that kind of help too. So we should all just be open to all types of healing.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lauren. It was so great to have you in the studio today.
This is like the longest we've been able to actually sit down and chat. So this is nice. Yeah, there's always so many people around.
And thumping music. Yeah, we can't hear each other.
Exactly. No, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. For more, subscribe to Sundays at Cafe Tabac, the podcast. You can also learn more about us and our film at cafetabacfilm.com and at Cafe Tabac Film on social media. Please share your thoughts with us, and if you have a coming out story that you'd like to share, reach out to us. This episode was recorded at the Newsstand Studio at Rockefeller Center, here in the heart of New York City. Special thanks to Joseph Hazen and Karen Song for their support. See you next time.